Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast with me, Rory Lees-Oakes. And with me, connected by 2 tin cans and a piece of string, is Mr. Ken Kelly. How are you doing, Ken?
Not bad at all, Rory. It is really good to see you today. Excited about the episode that we have to bring. Love the analogy of the 2 tin cans and piece of string, because I guess that's how it all started, wasn't it? Communicating over a distance. We did it as kids, and we're doing the same now, except over maybe an electronic piece of string called the internet. And I suppose if you're listening to this, chances are you're listening over that very same piece of string, the internet. So what can you expect in episode 30 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast? We're going to start off by having a chat about the different awarding bodies here in the United Kingdom. We're then going on to Theory with Rory, where we're going to be hearing about Bruce Tuckman, which is going to link into your personal development group. So definitely some interesting theory that you're going to be sharing there with us, Rory. And then we're going to be looking at the difference between self-actualisation and the actualising tendency. And I know that there's been some confusion in the Counselling Tutor Facebook group asking this question. So we thought we might like to shine a light and illuminate that subject today. And of course, if you want to follow us on Facebook and join in that conversation, come and join thousands and thousands of like-minded learners throughout the world studying counselling and psychotherapy. Just go to Facebook and type in Counselling Tutor, and that's us. Come and knock on the door. We will let you, we'll warmly welcome you in, won't we, Rory?
We will. We'll bring your own tea, is what we say. Just bring your own tea.
So let's kick off. Awarding bodies. Oh, now this is a contentious, is that a good word for this issue? I know there's so much talk about this.
Oh, we're talking in the UK. I think what we have to do is we have to presage this by saying it's in the United Kingdom, but perennially students are always asking, and rightly so, you know, which qualifications get me to where I am. There's degrees, there's master's degrees, there's level 4s, level 2s, level 3s, and it's a complete jumble, and there's different modalities of therapy. It's a smorgasbord, Ken, a smorgasbord of qualifications. So I thought what we'd do today is we'd shine just a little bit of light on it, and then people then can kind of make their opinions and take their journey as they want. Basically, in this country, in the UK as it stands, most people enter a counselling qualification at level 2, which is equivalent to a GCSE. It's a vocational equivalent to a GCSE. And it's usually a 10-week course, but it can, even more confusingly, be a year's course. So you can do a year's level 2 in counselling skills, or you can do 10 weeks in counselling concepts, which is basically just the concepts of counselling. You go away with a little skill set, and you do a little bit of personal development. And then you go on usually to level 3, which is the equivalent of doing A-levels, vocational equivalent of doing A-levels in the UK. And that gives you either a certificate or a diploma in counselling skills. And again, that's confusing. Diplomas tend to have more credits, learning credits. So you get so many credits for the levelness of course. Again, it's quite a confusing concept. And then from level 3, you move on then to either level 4, or some universities will take you for a degree, or you could go and do a master's degree. So that's where we stand. And just to get the levelness of the degrees, the first year of a degree is level 4. The second year, which is sometimes called a foundation degree, is level 5. Level 6 is a full degree. Level 7 is a master's degree, and level 8 is a PhD.
Wow.
Are you confused, Ken?
Of course I am. And it's really interesting you mentioned this, and it comes up as a topic in today's podcast, because just yesterday, Rory, I had a phone call from a student of counselling and psychotherapy asking this very question. And he had just finished his level 2, and actually he'd just finished his level 3. I apologise. So he'd just done a year, so a counselling certificate, as you mentioned it. And he was wondering whether he should go down the degree route, or if he should just go to college and do a level 4. And my question to him was, what is your goal? What do you want? And he reported back that he wants to get in front of clients into practice as soon as possible. And I think that's the question you have to ask yourself when you're looking at the different routes to becoming a counsellor is, what do you want out of it? So if your end goal is to maybe work in the NHS, which is the National Health Service here in the United Kingdom, then you're most likely better going down a degree route, because the NHS really values a degree, and they're going to value it maybe higher than a level 4 qualification. But if your intention is to get in front of clients, and that's closest route to that, maybe level 4 is the way to go. But it's difficult. And maybe that playing field will be leveled as we go forward, Rory.
Well, I think it's probably going to. I do hear that in 2017, they're going to alter the qualification levels generally across the board, not just in counselling, but generally altering qualification levels in vocational qualifications. I think the only thing to watch out for is if you're doing, if you want to become a therapist, the best courses are ones where you actually turn up into a class. Online courses, although will give you lots of educational content. You'll find out lots of things. You'll learn lots of things. Unless you're actually with a group of people and you're actually interacting and developing those skills and developing your own self, really online courses for counsellor training, they're not kind of really seen as authoritative, and certainly they won't get you onto a practice-based course. The other thing to watch out for, and I can't believe this, Ken, there are still university courses out. Are you holding on to your seat, Ken?
I'm holding on.
Okay. There's still university courses out there where you can do a degree in counselling, 3 years, and you can't practice to be a counsellor because you can't join an ethical body. And the reason for that is that they don't have 100 hours, a minimum of 100 supervised hours of client contact. I've had people come to me when I was a tutor who'd done a 3-year degree in counselling, and said they turned up, they got the flat hat, they've got the cape, great, got this degree. They've gone then to join the BACP, and the BACP have said, and it would be any ethical body have said, well, you've not done 100 hours of supervised practice.
Yeah.
And what in one case they'd done 40 hours of supervised practice, and they said, well, look, if I do another 50 hours, will you add it on? And the BACP said no, because you've qualified. So this person had a degree, a counselling degree, and then wanted to do a level 4 in counselling because they couldn't practice.
Yeah.
So just be really careful. Just be really careful when you come to choose your qualifications. And then we have, of course, BACP accredited courses and non-accredited courses.
I know it's just so difficult, and it's no wonder that it's confusing. I'm confusing just talking about the topic. I'm speechless, honestly.
I know. And the thing with BACP accredited courses is the BACP come in and have a look at the course structure. So for those of you who don't know who the BACP are, they are the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. They are one of, although it's arguably they are the biggest voice in counselling and psychotherapy in terms of ethics. So they're a charity. They interface with government, charities, third sector organisations, as we call them, counselling providers, to set a code of ethics and a standard of work. And they have a very, very big voice. UK government listens to them. There's also the UKCP, which is for psychotherapists. So again, we're not even going to go down the psychotherapy route because that's a whole different podcast. But the awarding bodies link themselves to the BACP code of ethics, usually the BACP code of ethics. So the BACP go to a training provider and they pay a fee as a training provider, and then you can have BACP accreditation as a training provider. And that means that when you qualify from a BACP accredited course, then you don't have to do what we call the cycling proficiency test or the proficiency test, which is a test given by the BACP to students who've qualified so that they then go on to get full membership. So if you're done an accredited course, you don't have to do the separate test, which is held at hotels and venues across the country, to get your certificate of registration with the BACP. I'm running out of breath, Ken.
I know.
Just such a big. It's a bit of a mess. I think I'm going to say it's a bit of a mess. There's courses all over, and it's just so hard for people to navigate.
It is, and here's the thing: we get asked all the time. We run a paid for resource. It's called the Counselling Study Resource, and you may have seen that if you've been involved with us for some time. And that is to support learners from level 2 right up to, I guess, higher education, with resources that kind of take the difficult theories, put them in more easy to understand structures, because Rory has you've got a talent of making it easy to understand, Rory, decoding all of that high academic hooty-tooty language. I hope I'm not offending any academics out there by saying.
Hooty-tooties, in fact.
I think this is all coming from my frame of reference here, the bits of self-leaking into that, Rory. Yeah. But the question we always get is, that I often get is, will this work if I'm working to such an awarding body, or if I'm on such a level? And here's the thing: the theories are pretty standard. It's the awarding bodies where the complication lies, and the levels where the complication lies. The theories of person-centered counselling, transactional analysis, but the behavioural therapies are pretty much the same. There's not much change. Of course, there are some contemporary new ideas that have come in, which are covered in the CSR as well. But the theories are all there. The skills are pretty standard across the board. Silence is silence, no matter what level you're practicing at. So I guess to answer that question that is often asked about the CSR, go and have a look. Go and have a look, and if it doesn't feel a fit for you, we'll give you your money back. But we've tried to match it across the levels and make it kind of global, I guess is the word. And it's interesting, you were saying that an area that is maybe not encouraged to go and study counselling is online studying. And the reason for that is because you do have to do skills sessions that are observed and get feedback on those by your peers, by your tutors. You do also need to go through personal development. And that neatly leads in, Rory, you're going to be so impressed with the segue that I'm doing now, to what you're going to be covering in theory with Rory today, because you're going to be telling us about Bruce Tuckman and just a little bit about how that kind of links into that personal development that we go through as counsellors during our training.
I'm just overawed, Ken, at your linking skills. They are excellent. Yes, a lot of the posts we get in the Counselling Tutor Facebook page are about personal development groups. There's someone who taught for 10 years. I have to share with you that it's one of the most confusing and perplexing sections of a training day, personal development or process group, because a lot of students, there tends to be no structure to it, or so we think, Ken, or so we think. So I'm going to talk a little bit in theory about a educational psychologist called Bruce Tuckman, who gave us a structure of how groups develop through the period of their learning arc. And this is really pertinent to personal development groups. And I'm going to make a handout. So, if you go to counsellingtutor.com, that's 2 L's in counselling. We spell it the English British way. And you find episode 30. You'll find out my handout where I list Bruce Tuckman's stages of group development. You could use it maybe to see if your group is moving in the direction of the theory. And if you're a tutor, you could have a free handout and you're welcome.
Let's get straight into Theory with Rory.
Counselling Theory with Rory Lees Oakes.
One of the universal truths of being a counselling tutor is that students' emotional and academic experience is enhanced considerably when they work together as a cooperative and connected group. The reason for this, I believe, is that unlike formal academic study, the teaching and understanding of counselling theories link into 2 distinct domains of learning. The first domain educators refer to as cognitive, basically the acquisition of facts and knowledge. The second domain of learning is called affective. This domain focuses on the feelings of self and personal attitudes towards the theories. The aim of counselling training is that students learn the theory and then go on to apply it into themselves as a road to personal understanding and development. Ultimately, they apply the theories to others such as fellow classmates in skills sessions, and for those who go on to practice, they apply it to clients. This can only be fully achieved if the group is working together, and as a way of tutor assessing if this is the happening is by referring to the work of American psychology professor Bruce Tuckman. In the 1960s, he identified 4 stages of group development. It became known as Tuckman's team development model, which he identified 4 stages every group or team go through before they can fully function as a productive, coherent unit. He identified these stages as forming, storming, norming and performing. He believed that unless each of the stages, along with the processes and feelings, had been satisfactorily addressed, it is unlikely that the team will reach the most productive final stage and become a self-reliant unit. So, what do these stages look like in terms of counselling groups? Well, the first stage is forming. This is where students may feel uncertain about what they are supposed to be doing and may ask the tutor for guidance. In this stage, it is not unusual for some to look for a group leader or someone to coordinate things. Feelings in this stage can be anxiety, nervousness, fear, helplessness, worry and confusion. Storming. In this stage, it's not unusual for groups to grow in confidence, sometimes rejecting input from the tutor or avoid the task in hand. They may look for reasons not to complete the task and things like not handing in assignments. In this stage, it's possible for members of the group to express their concern about others and challenge the group hierarchy. Feelings in this stage can be anger, frustration, hurt, worry, annoyed or resentment. The next stage is norming. In this stage, the group is now becoming open to input, to be more accepting of each other and ignore individual differences. And this whole process really is enhanced by personal development groups, where people can talk and express how they're feeling regarding the group or what's going on for them personally. Now, the feelings in this stage can be hopeful, brave, relief, or mindful. The next stage, and the final stage really of the 4-stage model, is performing. Now, this stage sees the group working together, trying to solve problems or misconceptions and move forward. Feelings in this stage can be hopeful, empathy, relaxed, valued and confident. Now, in 1975, Bruce Tuckman added a 5th stage to the forming, storming, norming and performing model. He called it a journeying. In terms of counselling groups, this is strongly linked to ending. This is the phase where those who have walked with you through the journey of personal development part ways. Feelings in this phase can be loss, sadness, happiness, excited, love and gratitude. It may be worth remembering that not every group fits this theory. However, I produced a handout that may be useful for groups or individuals to self-evaluate in terms of personal development. And if you're a tutor, it will make a super resource for personal development lessons or as a group evaluation exercise. So to download that handout, go to www.counsellingtutor.com. Now there's 2 L's in counselling, and look for episode 30, then click the link to download.
Well, thank you very much, Rory, for sharing that. And it's so interesting, when I was sat in my personal development group, the last thing I was thinking was that there was forming, storming, norming and performing going on within the group. But it just makes so much sense at how groups bond. And I guess that's groups of all different kinds, but it's going to show itself in your personal development groups. Thank you very much for that. And just a reminder, there's a great handout that you can take away from that. And to get that, you just go to counsellingtutor.com, click on the podcast tab, go to episode 30, and you can download it from the show notes page along with all the links from today's episode, free of charge. You just click on it and we will send it to you. Thank you, Rory.
Yep. So we're going to move on now to an interesting piece of theory, the actualising tendency. And one that can be a little confusing for people new to the work of the Oak Park man, as I like to call him, or Carl Rogers. And that is the difference between the actualising tendency and self-actualisation. And it's a bit confusing. Self-actualisation was a belief and a theory shared not only by Carl Rogers, but also by Abraham Maslow. And it was the notion that human beings have the innate ability to grow and develop in the world, despite or in spite of their circumstances. And a few weeks ago, I did a podcast about Carl Rogers' potato. So if you search the podcast, you'll find Carl Rogers' potato and him using potatoes as an example of how people grow. The actualizing tendency, sometimes known as the force of life. In other words, on a hot summer's day, if you're walking down the street and you look on the footpath and you see a little weed growing through a piece of concrete, that is the actualizing tendency. It is this little weed trying to be the best it can be and forcing its life through, trying to push itself up. You can see it in the trees. You can see it in anything that lives. It wants to be the best it can be in its circumstances. That is the actualizing tendency. And Rogers believed it was something that was in everything that lived. He talks about the organism. So that's the actualizing tendency. The self-actualization is something that's kind of on a linear scale. And to that, we look at the 7 stages of process, which is going from a place of very fixed and rigid thinking that the world needs to change and that I'll just sit and wait for it. And you'll be sitting and waiting a long time if you want the world to change, I have to say, to a place where you live life on life's terms. In other words, that you're flexible and fluid in the world and realize that the whole of the world is changing around you. And that's self-actualization. And here's the thing, Ken. Very few theorists believe that people actually got to this nirvana, this plateau of being fully self-actualized.
Yeah.
I think that Abraham Maslow only cited 2 people, and one was Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the wife of an American president.
Interesting choice.
I mean, I have to say that if you go back historically, she would be fit very well someone who was self-actualized, because she lived life on her terms and spoke in a very authentic way. But yeah, very few people hit that stage 7 or that nirvana. It's an ongoing journey, and it moves as we do through our lives. As our lives change, then we have new challenges, and that harnesses our ability to self-actualize. So that's the difference between the actualizing tendency and self-actualization.
It's an interesting topic, and I know that this was brought up again. It was in the Facebook group, and that's why we're covering it, because there is confusion, because they sound very similar, don't they? And I guess the way I look at it is as a person-centered therapist, so looking to the work of Carl Rogers, and this is where this theory lies, is that when I look to a client, I look to them as having the tendency to actualize. There is that belief in me that they can be the best that they can be, but it is their process that they go through, self-actualization, that you see in therapy when they have those moments of movement where they go, oh, it is no longer like that. It is now like this. They've experienced self-actualization, but we believe that the actualizing tendency lies there, that they can make it if given the right conditions. And it goes back to Carl Rogers' potato experiment. Can you just talk us kind of through that potato experiment? Because I think it's just such a beautiful way of describing it.
Well, it's what makes Carl Rogers' theory elegant. It's an elegant theory of human growth. When he was in Oak Park, Illinois, as a boy, they moved when he was 12, his parents, to a bigger place in Oak Park, Illinois, which was a farm, and they farmed. In fact, Rogers' little job in the world was to look after sheep. Believe it or not, he farmed sheep. But one day he's in the cellar, and during the summer they'd harvest potatoes, and they'd store them for the winter. And then he happened to notice that in this bin where they stored the potatoes, there was a little potato on the top, which was starting to sprout and grow roots, and it was pointing towards a window in the basement, pointing towards the light. And in that moment, so Rogers writes in his last book, A Way of Being, which he published in the 80s before he died, he realised that this potato was trying to be the very best it could be, given the fact it had no water and no food. It was trying to grow, and it was trying to grow in a very weedy way, and it was a little poorly developed shoot, but it was doing its best. That little potato, bless it, it was doing its best. And what he would do, and you couldn't imagine this now, could you, Ken? In the modern academia you have now, he would turn up at conferences with 2 potatoes. One he grew in a potato bin, and one that he grew with all the soil and sustenance and light. And he would hold it up in front of these very established psychologists and say, "Look, this is the force of life. This has been developed. This little weedy potato is trying the best it can. It's getting no help at all, but it's still trying to grow. This potato I've helped, and look how positive and strong and self-assured it is. If potatoes could be self-assured in the world, it is." And he said that's the force of life. And like potatoes, humans are the same. They have an innate tendency to develop and grow. And that's why he was called a quiet revolutionary. I mean, he was just a real revolutionary person. And, that's the theory of self-actualization.
I love it. I really do. And you mentioned the potato and self-actualization. If you want to hear more about that, counsellingtutor.com, episode 22. So you click on the podcast tab, go to episode 22, and that is explained in more detail there. And there is even the download of the potato experiment, Rory, so that they can hold that in their hands as well. It's well worth having. But I just warn you against when you asked to write about Carl Rogers writing 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. But there you have it. What an episode. I think this was an episode that started in confusion. It started in the confusion of the awarding bodies. And then we got some clarity, thank you, Rory, as we went into the theory with Rory, Bruce Tuckman, and forming, storming, norming, and, of course, performing. And then looking at what may have been confusion, but cleared up as you explained the difference between that self-actualization and the actualizing tendency. What an episode 30 is. And we want you to talk about it some more. Come and chat about the awarding bodies, your courses, what you're on, what your frustrations are, what your joys are. And you can do that in our Facebook group, counsellingtutor.com. If you go to our website, that's our mother website, that's where all the good stuff happens. Right on the top menu bar, there's a little tab that says Facebook, and when you click on it, it's a secret link straight into the group. Go use it. It's the trapdoor. It's the trapdoor into the group. What an episode.
It's been a great episode, and it brings us to the end of this episode. So as always, stay grounded and stay safe.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.